King John's shocking betrayal of England. How a king's greed, cowardice, and cruelty changed a nation forever. In the grand tapestry of English history, few monarchs evoke as much scorn, suspicion, and infamy as King John. Unlike the heroic Richard the Lionheart or the reformer Henry II, King John's name has become synonymous with betrayal, tyranny, and failure. But behind the legacy of villainy lies a complex tale of ambition, power, desperation, and a betrayal so deep it nearly cost England its very soul. This is the story of King John's shocking betrayal of England, a tale of wars lost, alliances broken, and the birth of one of the world's most important legal documents, the Magna Carta. When John became king in 1199, he inherited a realm weakened by war, but rich in legacy. His elder brother, Richard the Lionheart, had been the paragon of knightly virtue, a warrior king who led crusades and held off enemies on all fronts. But John was different. He wasn't charismatic, he wasn't brave, he wasn't even popular. What John was cunning and cold and greedy. The barons whispered. The nobles watched, and the people hoped he might prove them all wrong. They were wrong. A king's greed knows no bounds. John's betrayal of England began not on the battlefield, but in the treasury. To fund his campaigns in France and to consolidate his power at home, he taxed the barons beyond reason. He levied scutage, a fee nobles had to pay instead of serving in the military. But then he did it again and again, even when there was no war. He fined widows who refused to remarry, sold justice to the highest bidder, and seized land from his enemies, real or imagined. He turned the crown into a racket, a mafia enterprise cloaked in ermine robes. But even as his nobles grew restless, John's gaze turned across the Channel. John's mother, Eleanor of Aquitaine, had once ruled over vast territories in France. The Plantagenet kings held more French land than the King of France himself. But that ended with John. In 1204, after a disastrous series of blunders and betrayals, John lost Normandy, the jewel of the Angevin Empire, to King Philip II of France. This wasn't just a military loss, it was a humiliation. Thousands of English families were stranded, nobles lost their ancestral lands, trade collapsed. And John? He blamed everyone but himself. England now had a king who could neither protect his territories nor the dignity of his crown. John's next betrayal came not against nobles, but against God. In 1205, John quarreled with Pope Innocent III over the appointment of the Archbishop of Canterbury. When the Pope's candidate, Stephen Langton, was rejected, Innocent struck back. He placed England under interdict. Churches closed, sacraments ceased, no weddings, no funerals, no last rites. John responded by seizing church property and exiling clerics. It wasn't until 1213, under threat of a papal crusade, that John capitulated. And in an act that many saw as the ultimate betrayal, he offered England as a fiefdom to the Pope, agreeing to pay annual tribute in return for papal protection. England, the proud kingdom of Arthurian legend, had become a vassal state to Rome. The barons' revolt in the Magna Carta. By 1215, John's cruelty, cowardice, and failures had pushed the English barons to the brink. They rose in revolt, marching on London demanding reform. John tried to stall, to divide, to deceive. But on June 15, 1215, at Runnymede, he was forced to seal the Magna Carta, the great charter that limited royal power and protected the rights of free men. It was the first time in English history that a king had been forced to recognize that he was not above the law. But John never intended to keep his word. Just weeks later, he wrote to the Pope, begging for the charter to be annulled. Innocent obliged, declaring the Magna Carta null and void, as if it had never existed. The betrayal was complete. Civil war erupted. The barons invited the French prince Louis to invade England and take the crown. For the first time in over 150 years, the throne of England was at serious risk of falling to a foreigner. John died in 1216, not in glory or peace, but in misery, sick, desperate, and hated. According to chroniclers, he died of dysentery after a disastrous campaign in the Wash. His baggage train, full of treasure and royal records, was swallowed by the sea. Even in death, England seemed to spit him out. His son Henry III was just 9 years old. The kingdom was in chaos. But the Magna Carta, reissued under Henry's regents, survived, and it would go on to become the foundation for modern constitutional law, inspiring revolutions in England, America, and beyond. King John didn't just betray his nobles, his people, or his country. He betrayed the very ideals of kingship. Yet in a strange twist of fate, his failures gave birth to freedom. Because without his cruelty, there would be no Magna Carta. Without his tyranny, there might never have been a movement toward constitutional monarchy. And so King John, the worst king England ever had, accidentally became one of the most important. His story is a reminder that sometimes even betrayal can change the world.